Well, certainly we know that the Russian gas is extremely competitive, and it's very difficult for the US to be competitive with Europe as the customer and to have to deliver in Europe. So it's a difficult task, and I think it's clear that Russia will win this competition.
Shalom, all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, Bashem Rakakwadash. My name is Jacobo from Plaintables Camp in Philly. Is closed, relocated, or open? What's the status of embassies in Afghanistan? This is just to show that Babylon America's power is dwindling around the earth. You have a few. Says the flag is no longer there for the U.S. Well, of course, but they're still in the area. All right. The point is that the other countries. So most of the operations at British Assembly in Kabul are temporarily suspended in response to the deterioration in the security situation. But they're still there. All right. Some guards. All right. China. The China embassy in Afghanistan, on the other hand, continues to function as normal, with the Taliban reportedly having pledged to guarantee its safety. Russia, the Russian embassy has stayed put in Afghanistan as well. Their ambassador, as per Associated Press News, also met with the Taliban for what he dubbed constructive talks. All right, Pakistan, as per media reports, Pakistan's embassy continues to remain functional in Afghanistan. India, as per reports, the Indian embassy in Kabul has not been officially shut yet, as is functioning with local aid. So that's still open. All right, so those are the countries that are still there operating. All right, now this is as of, according to this article anyway, August 20th. So it's about two and a half weeks old, I guess. All right, this is Isaiah 14:11. Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? So this is referring to the Edomites. All right. And Lucifer means a light bearer, I believe. All right. So the power that Esau once had, starting with Babylon America, is starting to go down.
Sanctions. The go-to knee-jerk reaction of America's punitive machine to pretty much everything it doesn't like. But this time, with Nord Stream 2, some parts got loose, cogs got jammed, and the whole thing fell apart.
I have been opposed to Nord Stream 2 from the beginning, but it only has, it's almost completed by the time I took office. And to go ahead and impose sanctions now would, I think, be counterproductive in terms of our European relations.
Round after round of US sanctions, now waived. The company building the pipeline is no longer under restrictions, and neither is the executive leading the firm. Sanctions were meant to stop the $11 billion project in its tracks. Washington was working the levers for Ukraine here. Kiev's terrified of losing the huge fees Moscow pays it to transit the blue fuel to Europe and being bypassed by Nord Stream 2.
Russia can easily use Nord Stream 2 as a political weapon against other countries.
We see it as undermining Europe's overall energy security and stability.
It's a clear warning to companies aiding and abetting Russia's malign influence projects will not be tolerated. Get out now or risk the consequences.
Somewhat unprecedented, the US didn't shy away from publicly intimidating one of its biggest allies, Germany, all for being the destination of the pipeline.
No one wants to be unilaterally dependent on Russia, but we received Russian gas not only in the DDR, where I lived, but also in West Germany during the Cold War. And I don't see why the times today should be so much worse that we can no longer say Russia remains a partner.
Ultimately, it's in contradiction to the EU's own energy security goals. I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to reiterate that, including the law in the United States, which requires us to sanction companies participating in the efforts to complete the pipeline.
The problem is, US producers simply can't compete. Russia's gas is both far cheaper and greener.
Well, certainly we know that the Russian gas is extremely competitive, and it's very difficult for the US to be competitive with Europe as the customer and to have to deliver in Europe. So it's a difficult task, and I think it's clear that Russia will win this competition. Some of the US fossil fuel output is subject to controversy because of practices and processes like fracking, whereas with Russian gas, it's much more straightforward.
Nord Stream 2 used to vex the US a lot. But now the waiver of opposition is in Washington's interest, apparently.
I think that the US expected to have an easier time controlling their Europeans and getting them to agree with the American policies against their own economic interest. If we look back to the sanctions that America asked Europe to impose on Russia, it really hurt Europe economically very much, while it turned out that US firms were not really suffering from those sanctions, and they took the business of Europeans. And I think a lot of Europeans have realized this, and so they now think that maybe it's not just about politics, maybe also US economic interests are trying to suppress this relationship between Europe and Russia. And maybe therefore the resistance in Europe has to become stronger. And I suspect that's the reason why the Biden administration took the slightly surprising step of allowing it to happen and not punishing too many counterparties with sanctions.
Pomp, we have exaltation, majesty, pride, deep pleasure in one's achievements, excellence, pride, arrogance in a bad sense. It's pomp. Worm, Ramah, maggot, as a cause and sign of decay. All right. You got the pipeline that America was strongly against because it was going to bypass the Ukraine. Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline to start operating in days. Russia, Lavrov says this is September 6th. All right. So all things they're gonna start to change. All right. America, Babylon is not the great superpower as it used to be.
I've been opposed to Nord Stream 2 from the beginning, but it only has it's almost completed by the time I took office. And to go ahead and impose sanctions now would, I think, be counterproductive in terms of our European relations.
Ultimately, it's in contradiction to the EU's own energy security goals. I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to reiterate that, including the law in the United States, which requires us to sanction companies participating in the efforts to complete the pipeline.
Whether the US likes it or not, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is around 98% complete, according to its project director. They're expecting the construction phase to be finished in August. After that, they say around 3 months for certification and safety checks to be carried out. Then gas will start flowing through the pipeline from Russia directly into Germany. It is one of those major stumbling blocks in the relations, as I say. Angela Merkel earlier this week saying she's not expecting any major breakthroughs when it comes to the Nord Stream 2 impasse between Washington and Berlin. There's also a chance that they'll be discussing another area that there is an impasse as well, and that's on China. Angela Merkel has been a big advocate of closer ties with Beijing. The US seeing things going in a very different way. We'll be looking to see what the German Chancellor and the US President discuss and what the results of those discussions are when they meet in Washington later on Thursday.